but it's fake that makes your senses real. With each bite you take a trip to the stars. The sizzle of the grill, it heals your battle scars. A love affair between man and meat. Your passion for steak can't be beat you, yeah. Oh yeah. You will be, you're a meat lover through and through. You crave that sizzling flavor. It's true. With your hair and your beard so wild, you're the steak-loving heartthrob of the twin stream. You're a steak-loving heartthrob of the twin stream. When the moon rises high and bright, you wield your fork like a knight in meaty fight. The grill becomes your battlefield, flames ablaze. And the steak, oh the steak, it's your trophy, your praise. Ooh yeah. You'll be, you're a meat lover through and through. You crave that sizzling flavor. It's true. With your hair and your beard so wild, you're the steak-loving heartthrob of the twin stream. Well, I'm sitting here waiting for the lights to turn bright. Got my controller ready, but the stream's taking all night. You're chatting away, but I'm dying to play. Give me that action, can't wait another day. Checking the clock, taking slow like a metronome. Patiently waiting for you to come on. I'm itching for that game, ready to dominate. These delays got me starting to hate. Oh, you man, won't you hurry up and start the show? Got my fingers twitching and my enthusiasm's flowing. This waiting ain't right, can't take it no more. I need those games, you may open up the door.
The following film is presented in its complete theatrical version. It was rated R by the MPAA and may not be appropriate for children under 17. It is rated TV MA LSV and contains strong language, sexual situations, violence, and nudity. It is intended only for mature audiences. Viewer discretion advised.
Yo, check it out! Vanilla Thunder in the house!
I like steak.
Button full of bars flowing from its head. Got hair flowing and long. Rubies dropping jokes and songs of bombs. Science, kinda like milk that's expired. Vanilla Thunder from the plains of Texas. Vanilla Thunder is coming Lexus. Vanilla Thunder, big catastrophe. That's just who he is. Our boy UB. Stepping up and stepping out.
Oh, you're here. Hey, it's Ubi. How you doing? I am trying not to melt. Oh, Lord. How's everybody doing? It is a Tuesday. Another great banger by the guys, 2 Yards and Keith. It was a really good song, guys. Loved it. Glad you dropped it, and glad all of you are here tonight. As we're going to take this next half hour or so and talk about the wonderful world of latency. That is the topic we'll be dumping into this evening. And latency means something different in both the analog and the digital guitar worlds. So if you've ever played through a computer, you're probably thinking, why in the hell does this feel so weird? And that's mainly because of latency. Now, when you're on an analog amp, the speed at which it goes from your playing, strumming your electric guitar through your cable, even through your effects pedals into your amp, is actually literally at the speed of light. Unless you've got a modeling pedal or a modeling amp, the circuitry, it just goes at the speed of the electricity going through it. So you actually almost can't feel a latency in an analog if you're right up against an amplifier. The time that you'll feel it when you're on analog is if you're really far away from your amplifier. The speed of sound through air is roughly 1 millisecond per foot, more or less, give or take. So if you are, say, 10 seconds away from the source of the speaker that's playing what you're playing, you'll have about a 10 millisecond delay. That's actually one of those things that happens if you are really far away from other people that you're playing with, or if you don't have like a combined monitor near you, is you'll actually if you're on a large enough stage and you're far enough away from the source of somebody else playing with you, even if you're all on analog, you can have this effect of latency. Especially think about those folks who struggle when they're singing the national anthem, like in a huge stadium, and they don't have like a monitor, like an in-ear monitor or monitor coming back at them. That's latency. To actually hear that latency. When you actually are using a digital chain, you run into latency more, because instead of the physical circuitry, the actual capacitors, the resistors, the chips themselves running just at the speed of electricity, everything gets converted into ones and zeros, and then it has to be processed just like anything else on your computer. So you're adding additional time on that. Now, the first part on latency is going to be the audio interface itself. The audio interface actually has a buffer, and that's actually where the majority of your latency in a digital world comes from. That buffer size controls how much time that your computer gets to process on the guitar signal before sending it past to you. So a bigger buffer means you're going to have a more stable sound, but it's going to be more of a delay as it moves on. Whereas a smaller buffer means that it doesn't process it quite as much, but if your CPU can't keep up, you're going to start getting things that aren't processed cleanly. You will get pops and crackles and various other artifacts in that chain. So it's a balancing act, getting that buffer as small as you can get it so it processes as quick as possible, but having to be large enough that your CPU and all the hardware and all that can process everything in a fast enough time that it will give you a clean sound. But that's not where all of your latency comes through. Once that sound has been converted into that audio stream, it then goes through whatever is processing it. So that's your plugins, that's your amp sim, your cab IRs, delay, reverb, a pitch shifter that I use that, and those sort of things. Every one of those stops along the way has to have time to crunch those numbers in memory. So you're slowly tacking on more milliseconds the more that you put into it. Jeremy, yes, absolutely. We're getting that next. So the amount of time it takes for you to pluck a string, that vibrating string to go over your pickup, converted into electricity, that electrical signal going out of the jack on your guitar into the cable, into your audio interface, from there being converted from the electrical impulses into the ones and zeros for your digital, then going through the cable into your computer, being processed of everything inside of your computer, then being returned back on the cable and back into your headphones. That's what we call a round trip latency. So that, on the fastest of gears out there with the best chains, you might get 5 or 6 milliseconds. You're probably going to get somewhere more along the lines of about 10, maybe 15 milliseconds if you've got like a typical chain. If you start getting over that, when you're getting up to about 25 or so, that's when it will really start to be felt for you. If it's over 40, it's kind of like you're playing in molasses. You're plucking a string and you can actively hear how much longer it takes before you hear the sound back to it. You start getting that huge stadium effect that we're talking about. So the truth of the matter is 10-second millisecond delay can feel like a delay if you are used to a 0 millisecond delay. It's not really necessarily about numbers, but it's also about what you're used to. So, for example, if you use a clean setup where you're just plugged straight into the amplifier, maybe like a pedal or two, and you're, say, 3-4 feet away from your amp, that snappiness, when you pluck that string, you're getting it back within like a millisecond, literally that quickly. I mean, almost instantaneous. So if you're used to that, if you've been playing for that for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, more, even something as low as 10 milliseconds, it's going to throw your muscle memory off. You're definitely going to feel that. It's going to feel sluggish to you, even if it's not enough to really sound out of time, that sort of thing. I actually had some creep on that for my rig itself. I had been pushing my buffer up and up and up because I was having some issues in my system. And it did kind of make me feel like I was a little bit more sloppy, but it's actually a lot to do with the latency on that. So how do you reduce latency? Well, one of the questions we had was using something called direct monitoring. And that is one of the ways that you can fight latency. A lot of interfaces have a button to do direct monitor. And what that does is, instead of taking the signal that goes all the way through that entire round trip, through your chain and all that back to you, it takes that signal, that electric signal, before it even gets converted to the digital, and immediately shoots it right back out at you. So you won't have any of your, you won't hear any of the things to process on it. So you won't hear your amp, you won't hear your cabinet, you won't hear any of your effects or anything, but you will hear that immediate return back to you. So if you're capable of playing and not having heard what the entire sound of your chain feels like, if you just need that immediate feedback of the strings that you plucked, then that direct monitor might help you with that. But again, the only thing about that is, again, you won't hear the actual fully processed sound on that. Other things you can do, well, obviously we talked about the buffer. You can lower your buffer size. Start at something like 128 or 160 or so, and listen, set it at a low setting, play your guitar. If it's nice and clear, there's no breakup sound into it, especially use a clean channel for this. There's no breakup, there's no pops, no crackles, no whistles, no weird sounds, then you're okay at that buffer. You could even maybe try going down a little bit. But if you do have that audio artifacting, then you'll want to step it up to a slightly bigger size for your buffer. The key to that is very much the same as the gain staging. Make it as small as you can until it crackles and messes up for you, and then go back up just a little bit. So you can try to get that buffer as low as possible while still getting that actual solid sound from it. Another thing is, like, if you've got the focus right, if you go into the controls for it, there's a safe mode in there. If you turn that safe mode off, what it does is it's actually, when it's in safe mode, it's actually expanding your buffer just even a little bit more that you can't see, just to make sure that you got a nice clean sound. Removing that will reduce that extra buffer that it's putting inside of there for you. Some of the other interfaces may or may not have a safe mode. Check your driver, the place that you would set, what frequency and what buffer size it has. The next one is also kind of a self-explanatory no-brainer. Get rid of any plugins that you don't need. If you have plugins that are on your chain that aren't actively needed on it, removing those will take one more stop on that trip to there and could potentially take some of that latency out of it. And also, don't forget to keep all of your drivers updated. There are often times where there are some crappy drivers that are out there from 5-10 years ago where they fixed some problems on them. So make sure that whatever device that you're using, you have the most recent version of the firmware and the most recent version of the drivers from the manufacturer's site. That's another thing that could potentially take care of that for you. Now, the question really is which one of these is better for latency? Well, analog, that kind of wins on feeling. There's no contest about it. But digital wins on its flexibility, its portability, its budget. And we'll be honest, most of us that are chasing that really good solid tube tone amp in a one-bedroom apartment can't really buy a Plexi and crank it up at midnight if you want to maintain your relationship with your fellows that are around you, or maybe your landlord. So, but really what's the most important thing is understanding what may be causing that delay that you can tweak, that you can take care of. And when you do get it right and you can find that sweet spot of about 10 to 20 milliseconds and you get used to it, like I am, then when you're playing it, it just feels natural to you. So that's kind of the small and skinny on digital and analog latency. Yeah. Any questions? Any questions over latencies or over anything else digital? Let's throw it open. That's a good point, Jeremy, because there are a lot of things that will affect especially on a tube amp. The power that you've got coming in, for example, will make a difference. Is it able to be fed the full amount of amperage it's trying to pull or less? It will make a difference on the sound on that. As a general question, your rig, your PC rig or whatever, will probably have a more clean and consistent tone. Okay, ask, Keith. Too much going on in a USB bus can affect, yes, absolutely can. The USB bus itself, if it's super busy, it can introduce noise into the chain, which is a problem, and it can also introduce some latency on it as well. Sometimes you can get a cleaner chain by having your USB on its own power source. There are products out there that can do that will help. Number one, make sure you've got consistent power on your USB cable. Number two, will clean up any noise that's on it. So that also potentially could take care of some latency. Latency, it'll also take care of your legacy, especially if you fry yourself. Quad cortex, Tonex, do they have delay too? Yes, they can. They absolutely can. Especially, I've heard people complain about some quad cortex patches giving them an almost unplayable latency. Tonex absolutely can if you put a bunch of stuff on it and you have a lesser CPU. I can load my Tonex up and make it give me latency. So it absolutely will do that. So if they're talking about having a processor for each, yeah, absolutely. What that means is each effect is running on its own individual processor. You can have a multiple processor setup even on your own computer. They can all be run on different threads, or if you have multiple CPUs, they could each be run on their own CPU. And if you have something that's super intense on one CPU, it won't affect what's happening off on the other one. So because of that, it will make it where they're processing in parallel for one thing, and a bottleneck in the chain in one spot doesn't cause the same amount of delay downstream as well. But it's absolutely is what's going on is it's being handed off from one set of processors to another. A baby deer, that's awesome. Yes, so if you're not running on ASIO and you're on Windows, your latency at best is going to be 50 milliseconds or more because of how slow Windows processes WDM devices and those sort of things. That's just flat out going to happen. So if you have the ability to go on ASIO, that's the only place that you're going to get near real-time latency is going to be with an ASIO driver. Kemper, I mean, but you also have to realize that Kemper is 100% designed to do what it's doing. So it's hardware that was completely designed for it. But it absolutely would be one of the gold standards out there. A diesel VH4 with a 7-foot cord and a guitar delay pedal. So the length of the cord generally is not going to matter. The speed at which the electricity goes from your guitar into the amp is at the speed of light. So you would have to have it. It would have to be light seconds plus away, or almost a light seconds away from you to notice the difference. The delay pedal could cause a little bit of a delay on it, so that could potentially give you some latency in there. Better shielded USB cables for your multiple effects is good. There's also some good adapters out there that will remove additional earth grounds and allow you to put its own clean power source into that USB. So it's not using the 5 volt rail from your power supply. I'm going to need to get one of those for mine because it looks like my power supply is trying to go, and that's causing some additional noise in my signal chain, unfortunately. Any other questions? Hey, Johnny, how you doing? Hi, Shanty. Or if I happen to miss your question in the comments, ask again. Just keep asking until I answer it if you have a question for me. Is latency related to signal degradation? Not usually. In this particular case, the two, like I said, the two main causes for latency within either analog or digital. Analog is distance you are from the actual source. So if your cabinet speaker is on the other side of a stage from you, 25, 30 feet away from you, you're going to have a 25 to 30 millisecond delay, just like you're on a digital chain. And then for digital, it's the processing time really that determines what kind of latency you have in it. BBM, you know my email. Email me. Of course, we love you, 2 yards. Did I miss any other questions? I don't think I did. The only thing that signal degradation will do is if you're on a an analog setup, is it's just going to give you additional breakup, just like your distortion will. Um, and on digital, digital is digital. It's either there or not. So, certain amount of degradation will be fine until you get to a certain point, in which case the USB just doesn't work anymore. How long of a guitar cord would cause signal degradation? For actually degrading the signal, that's a very good question. I don't have an answer to that one, but I can take a look for you. According to what I just looked up, you'll start losing your high frequency for a guitar cable that's longer than 20 feet without additional power. So anything under 15 feet, you really won't notice your tone change. Anything over 15, you'll start losing the upper end on it. And 30 feet and longer, you're going to have a really dull sound that you're going to start losing the lows on that as well. At that point, anything over 20 feet, you're going to want to have some sort of a signal boost. That's from an actual electrical engineer. Now, remember, electrical engineers only care about the numbers. They don't necessarily care about the feel. So it may be a different for somebody who actually has a better, hearing about it. What they actually perceive, the actual sound that comes out. But again, Brian's also correct on that. And so the impedance on the cable will also affect that. What do I think about playing a guitar through a bass amplifier? A combo amplifier, to be specific. So if you're running it through a bass amplifier, the bass is going to have a more naturally darker and dull, not dull, but a more dark tone to it. So you may need to EQ up your high ends a little bit more on that, but it will work. It's just you're going to have to be significantly more conscious of how you shape your sound. Ten-foot is definitely going to be safer, Jerry. Yep, Steve's absolutely right. And a general rule, thicker cable is quote unquote better, but it may or may not be better. It depends on why it's thicker. Does it have more copper in it? Is it better shielding? What actually makes it thicker? More programs are adding SAG to their offering. Exactly what does that do? Um, that's a real technical thing on there. I don't fully understand it myself, Jeremy. Let me look that info up and get a little better acquainted with it, and then I'll email you the answer for that one, because my understanding of it is not complete, and I don't want to say something that gets recorded that is incorrect. So let me look that up and get actual factual information to you for that. Yeah, bass amp will work fine too. But again, you got to realize it's going to give you kind of a darker tone, and that's fine if that's what you're looking for. If you're needing sparkle and the like, though, you're probably going to have to boost your upper end just a bit more. A wireless unit straight from God or what? It depends on the wireless unit. I've seen some wireless units that are outstanding, and I've seen some that are absolutely garbage. Of course, I say size matters, Keith. Why do you think I have? Why do you think I like Celeste so much? She's a thick girl. Size really does matter. Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to get kind of a full breakdown of exactly what it does. It's exactly trying to produce that hump that that you can get out of a tube amp, but I want to get, you know, like the actual wording for them so that I have it all correct. But you're absolutely right, Brian. That's what it, from my understanding, that's exactly what it does. Yeah, see, for me, I cannot use this in Bluetooth mode. It adds a good almost 100 milliseconds of latency. It makes it impossible for me to play or do any recording or any editing or anything. All right, last chance for any sort of questions. Anybody got anything else they want to shill before we go check out Ted's live stream tonight? Find Ted's stream so I can give everybody a. There it is. Drop that in there for everybody. Yes, go give Jeremy a subscription. He's real close to a milestone. So if you haven't give Strings and Pucks a subscription, go do it immediately. All right, we're going to go wrap it up here. Don't forget, we're going to be out tomorrow for our noon stream, and then Brian will have a live. Brian also has a pedalboard video coming up after Ted's stream. That's awesome. And yeah, so I'll see everybody over on the TED live stream. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're going to pop up the Patrons. I'm not going to read them off this evening. You can read them. They're all there, including our newest one. Thank you so much for all of your support and for being there. And yeah, we will see you all on our next stream. And in the meantime, over to Ted's. Let's keep the pub crawl going this night. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it, guys.